All right, baby. I'll meet you back. All right, baby. Hey, world. This being with it coming back live here. I'm not gonna be on long, family. I just wanted to come back real quick and like I said, if you've seen the post I put out there about how I think that the BLM whole movement situation is just a really, really big distraction. And, it just amazes me if you understand this cat by the name of Edward Bernays. He wrote a book called Propaganda back in 1928. And it's just amazing that all this stuff that's going on, fam, you got to realize from the time this pandemic, okay, the time this pandemic hit the scene, from January into January all the way to now to the present, you got to ask yourself, you know, what had happened to all those 45 million, 50 million people whose jobs have been lost? Okay, James, what it do? Hey, Angeline, hey. All right, what happened? Okay, and so what I want to talk about tonight is just how important it is to kind of don't get caught up in these distractions, in this madness, in this group herd mentality type of situation. Because I mean, it's been 3/4 of a year. Okay, this is going to be the end of September, going into October, going into the third quarter, going to the fourth quarter of the year, and so many people suffered, but you haven't heard anything about it on mainstream media. All you basically been hearing lately is just about the number of deaths in COVID, and these are people that's running for elections. Okay, now there are a lot of people, man. James, that's what's up. You did, because even people that are employed right now, I hope that it's a situation where there is a different plan of action for your retirement. Because remember, we're living longer. It's no accident that the high blood pressure, diabetes, sickle cell, cancer, all that stuff is really, really prevalent, and people are dying from it at a rapid pace. But you haven't heard anything else about it. Only COVID. It's not by accident. And so the number of people that are suffering from all these illnesses, you have to ask yourself. And I was just was tripping on this. If Black Lives Matter, right? The protesting that was done in the 60s didn't amount to anything. The rioting didn't amount to anything. There were no policy changes whatsoever. And so if the policies never change, then it's really just a facade of this whole notion of Black Lives Matter. It's just like the Civil Rights Movement. Didn't do anything. The Black Lives Matter movement, what is it doing? Because remember, CDC, Center for Disease Control, the NIH, the National Institute of Allergies and Infectious Diseases, what have they done? There has to be some type of, something tangible to justify all these billions and billions of dollars that are going to these two agencies, and no one is being cared about for nothing. And then you're talking about a cat that's a computer geek named Bill Gates. When did he become the expert on vaccines? And I thought he was a computer geek. When did he become like the doctor? When did he get into this field? And why haven't anybody did any type of research, any type of background research on these vaccinations that he are giving all of these people in Africa and third world countries? It just amazes me that these billionaires get all of this money that they want to take overseas, but then right here in your city, in the States, in your country, many, many people suffer. So it's really kind of like brainwashing. And that's why I want to kind of do this video, because, like say, Angeline, she's working from the crib. Man, it's a beautiful thing, because a lot of people not working right now. And the unemployment benefits have run out far as the extension. There's only been one stimulus check, but every time you go buy something, you pay taxes. And so you got to ask yourself, where's the tax money going? It's not going to you. It's not going to us. So the Social Security, your retirement plans, that plan of action needs to kind of go into place now. That's why I always been saying about pay yourself first, because Social Security right now, it's only on a national average, it's like $1,500 a month. Who can survive off of that? And then if you look at something called COLA, which is the cost of living adjustment, was the government supposed to adjust the cost of living amount, for the senior citizens because inflation rises every year, right? But if the COLA, the cost of living adjustment, which in 2021 is supposed to be 1.3%, but inflation is 2%, then you still coming up short. And if you're on a fixed income, how you surviving? And so, like I said, if you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, even your 50s, trying to sustain another stream of income where that stream of income can go towards something other than Social Security, investments, something, they have a lot of different securities out there. I'm not just speaking on stocks and bonds, but just also other things that you kind of should do some research on and invest in, that so you can kind of save your money where it can grow interest, compound interest. Because right now, Social Security is not going to do it. And if anybody have to survive on Social Security, it's going to be a pretty tough road. Think about this, family. $137,000 is the cutoff for Social Security, right? Meaning, you pay 6%, your employer matches at 6%. And so that's how much money is going towards your Social Security every year. And so if you're a high wage earner, you're making $137,000 a year for many years, then your Social Security is basically going to be maxed out at about $4,000 a month. But you're talking about going from, $11,000, $10,000, $12,000 a month to like $4,000 a month, because the max on Social Security is like $3,800. Now you got to ask yourself, well, how is that possible? If what about the people that's making $200,000 and $300,000? Well, Social Security, it caps at $137,000. See, this is information that is very, very important, because if you I'm just going to wait on Social Security, it's you're having to work longer to get more of the percentage of your money, which blows me away, because how do you have to work to almost 70 years old to get 100%? And remember, if you're a low wage earner, you $30,000, $40,000 a year for many, many years, your Social Security is going to be probably around the average. And so think about right now, imagine living off $1,400, $1,500 a month. And you've worked over 30 years, because remember, you got to work 40 quarters. How can you survive off of that? You did? And like I say, when I see my parents, right, and I see how they living, my mom and dad, they both, earn their Social Security. But my dad, he's still working, because he wants more. But even him working, okay, he's 70 years old, right? 71. He still has to make sure he doesn't make a certain amount of money. Because if senior citizens that's collecting Social Security get a job and it's making like over $18,000, $19,000, their Social Security is taxed 85%. So it's like, you got to ask yourself, how in the world do we allow this to happen? Okay? And remember, it's voting time, right? They all on the television talking about, vote for me. I want to do what's best for everyone with healthcare, with education. Let's see. Because right now, family, it's a lot of fake news going on. And when I mean fake news, we've been so conditioned. And I mentioned something at the beginning, family, about this cat by the name of Edward Bernays, and a book called Propaganda. And it was written in 1928. Please check that out, because then you'll have a pretty good idea of why we are living the way we live. Because remember, they've done such a great job, giving us what we want. What we want from advertising and marketing, from the television, but they never give us what we need. See, always just giving us what we want, then the things that we need go on the back burner, right? And then the ones that really need it suffer when it's not there. See, I think we all should basically be like having health care. Capitalism in this particular democracy, allegedly, it only works if the masses of people, can be controlled by what they buy, who they sponsor, who they support, and it's the total. And they got it on locks. It's the greatest divide and conquer method ever used, and it's definitely used in America, because just look at how we divided as a people. Look at how everything is divided. Politically, we're divided. Democrats, Republicans. Huh? Okay. If you look at the division in college fraternities and sororities, the division. You look at the division, economically, middle class, high class, lower class. It has to happen like that. And the way we divide it, there's never going to be any mutuality because it was designed that way. Republicans and Democrats will never come to a mutual agreement. They know that. And that's why the same people stay in office year after year after year, right? And never get anything done because they know the masses believe in this concept of politics that's really designed just to keep us divided, economically, to keep us divided. I mean, look right now in the pandemic, people that's wearing masks and people that don't wear masks, right? So it's designed to keep us divided. And just to mention something before I get out of the family about this Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the Supreme Court justice that just transitioned. It just amazes me how when everyone that dies in this type of environment, in this atmosphere, they were a champion for human rights. They're not human rights. They were a champion for civil rights, a champion for women's rights. But none of these people have ever been a champion for human rights because it doesn't fit their agenda. I mean, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she was the first Justice Supreme to marry a same-sex couple, to marry two guys. Huh? Women's rights. She made sure that women were able to get abortions when they wanted to. Huh? That's fighting for women's rights. I mean, to me, it's just disingenuous. And to be conscious and watch it from the outside, it's like kind of crazy. When you see these people marching in the streets talking about Black Lives Matter, and you still see such a discrepancy in the mortgage acceptance in Black communities and white communities and Hispanic communities. You see there's millions of applicants that get rejected, credit-worthy applicants that get rejected. Why? I mean, if Black Lives Matter, why are they still called historically Black colleges and universities? Isn't Yale and Harvard and Rice and MIT, aren't they historically white universities? So it's just disingenuous to think that going out and marching and having these so-called Black leaders that I know I didn't choose go on to televisions and say the same rhetoric that's been spewed since the 60s. If policy don't change, nothing changes. And you best believe, a revolution, get out of here. A revolution with what? Those against those with guns, against those without guns. And when I mean guns, I'm talking about like the military. You dig? So the chaos, this organized chaos, is expected. Why do you think no one said anything else about the plight of those over 45 million people still not working? Or the homeless? Or senior citizens right now? Or those who's dying of cancer, kids that are dying of cancer, people that are dying of diabetes. It's just only COVID. That is on purpose. Edward Bernays, 1928, propaganda. He's Sigmund Freud's nephew. This is design. All right? So pay yourself first, family. All right? Don't get caught up in these distractions because these distractions are what keep you inundated with confusion. So what's the best method, right, is to try to reinvent yourself. Okay, hey, what other certifications can I gain to increase my wealth and to increase my worth, my financial worth? Because the biggest difference between Black wealth and white wealth is inheritance wealth. If we have no inheritance, then you can't build on that for future generations. And when you live in a system where the rich is only, responsible for, 37% of income tax, right? And that's if they're making over, $500,000. But then we look at all the tax breaks. When you look at corporate tax rate is only 20%. When you look at the fact that capital gains taxes and capital losses can be, added into that equation to keep more of their money, more of the wealth. Well, if you don't have that wealth built up, from assets, then it's hard to have that disparity, shortened, because the majority of wealth, okay, from white people, a majority comes from inheritance. But when you have nothing to leave your kids, when you have no wealth, like assets, land, uh, stocks and bonds, treasury bonds, things that build up over time that you can, will to your kids and to your family members, where then they can use that and they can invest and reinvest and build it and build it and build it. Because remember, and they don't really have an inheritance tax. That's by choice. I mean, that's not by accident, right? And so, you know, Social Security reform, it's never going to happen. I mean, because we as a nation don't even have a problem. I mean, it's election time right now, right? And I promise you, if the one person that's running, one candidate that mentions Social Security reform, and lets the public understand what they mean by that. When they say, we're going to fight for social justice, what does that mean? Or, we're going to fight to lower prescription costs. What does that mean? See, there's nothing tangible there. See, when you're not dealing with numbers, then you're only just dealing with hope. And so people fall into it because of the propaganda, the group herd mentality. Because once you start identifying yourself with a group, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Christian, I'm a Baptist, I'm a this, I'm a that, then you basically just pretty much shackled and hindered your own self-identification and your own ability to look at things rationally, because you're going to look at things from the herd perspective, from your group. And this is the biggest way that they're able to keep everybody in a box. The herd mentality. I mean, everything is, even from entertainment, right? I mean, look at country western versus rap. Why can't people that listen to country western listen to rap? You did? It's divided that way. The NFL, the NFC versus the AFC. So it's a division that's been manufactured for over 100 years, and it's designed to keep us apart, okay? Keep us not together, because remember, it's only a small group of people that are making all these decisions on what we eat, what we buy, what we wear. It's only a small group of people. But in order for them to be as successful as they have been, they have to create the group mentality. Okay? They have to create a group mentality, but that group mentality has to have some division inside the group where they can divide it into where there's constant, struggles and conflict within the group. Because if you take out the confusion, when you take out the distractions, when you take out the division, and this one big group understanding human rights and social justice, and what's social justice? Making sure that, if there is someone giving, like Michael Jordan, giving $100 million over 10 years to fight social justice, what's that? Does that mean you're going to go and build homeless shelters for homeless people, or go to the women's abuse shelters? Or and build some those or schools. I mean, something tangible. Because if not, then I don't know what social justice is. I mean, they've been fighting social justice. I mean, to me, it's really ridiculous when you think about social justice, because remember, 1865 is when the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment was passed. President Trump said he's done more for black people than Abraham Lincoln. And Abraham Lincoln passed the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, which the 13th Amendment abolished slavery. The 14th Amendment was supposed to give black people citizenship, and the 15th Amendment was the right to vote. Well, those three things were pretty major. But then when you think about the Trail of Tears, right, and you think about the Jim Crow laws, and you think about the black codes, and you think about all of this stuff that's happened over the years and over in this country over the centuries, coming up with a Black Lives Matter movement in 2020 and doing the same thing we were doing in the 60s and whatever. Come on, man, it's ridiculous. It's insanity, if you ask me. Okay, it's insanity. So I think the focus, like I said, that's just another diversion. I think the focus should be, how can I improve my wealth, my health, and my consciousness, and try to stay away from these things that are really just kind of just ludicrous. Because even now, like say in Flint, Michigan, water's still bad, huh? And it's an election year. How many candidates in Michigan are going to mention that's running for senator, that's running for congressman? Okay, So I just wanted to kind of come back with a little food for thought, fam. I just thought it was pretty interesting that in this time of all these diversions, the pandemic, okay, the election time, okay, you have vaccinations, you have our kids, our school system is crazy right now. People still not working, but then you have essential workers. I promise you that to me, for us to let them get away with that one, to close bars. And my last thing, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, this champion for women's rights. Now she just transitioned just this past week, but for the last 9 months, you've seen a lot of female owners lose their businesses. Beauty shops, nail shops, a lot of female owners lose their businesses, and I ain't heard nothing about helping them out. Okay, I still think there's still a disparity with the amount of money men make in comparison to what women make. Okay? We still haven't had a female president. Right? There's still a lot of things going on. I mean, during this pandemic time, the domestic violence rate has went up skyrocket with women being abused. So this fight for women's rights and everything, I hear you, but it has to be tangible. Okay, civil rights, that was a joke. Then they just passed the LGBT rights, women's rights. But until you adopt something called human rights, it's all a farce. It's just game. You did? So family, like I said, don't depend on Social Security. The average Social Security right now is $1,500 a month. Please pay yourself first and look into other options, other ways to, save and invest. Right now, don't just keep your money in the banks, family, because I've been preaching in the garden many months that putting it in the bank is just wasting it. I mean, right now, the Bank of America, Chase, HSBC, several big banks around the world are implicated in this $2 trillion criminal investigation, where they had all this money, all this criminal activity money, transferring to different spots. But did we hear about it? No. You did? So that kind of stuff, you need to just kind of be conscious of and try to, decipher the real news from the fake news. And then just look at what it is. If there's nothing tangible happening, then it's just talk. It's election time right now, family. You see all the commercials. Listen to the lies. And then like I say, January, February next year, see if they're doing the same thing. I promise you they are. All right? Well, fam, thanks for joining me. I just wanted to come on and spread a little love and give a little food for thought. And I hope everybody's doing well out there. I'm here in H-Town. We had a little tropical storm. We had people trying to drive through the waters. Of course, had a lot of stalled vehicles out there. And it's really crazy because it's every year. It floods in the same area every year. And it trips me out because I'm like, since Katrina, that was like 2006, you would think that Houston would have used money to build up a better infrastructure to avoid the type of flooding that's going on. Okay? See what I'm saying? So you got the real news and the fake news. So when these politicians and people come out and say what's best for the American people and how they're helping the American people, look at your neighborhood. Right? Look at the prices. Look at inflation. Look at the rates. Rates are going to continue to be low for another 2 years. The federal chair, Jerome Powell, just said he's going to keep the rates depressed to almost zero for another 2 years. So that tell you right there that if you're not going to get a high interest rate for your money, why is it in banks? Okay? So all this does is help the people that already have money. So, family, meantime, between time, may the Most High decided to bring you joy, family. Thanks for joining me. And being with us out of 5,000.